Hey everybody, and welcome to an all-new edition of the Pac-12 playlist. I'm Ashley Adamson, and I think these days we could all use a little extra optimism and positive energy in our lives. So on tonight's show, we are bringing you the human manifestation of positive energy and optimism. Yes, his name is Herm Edwards, the head coach of the ASU Sun Devils. Recently spent some time with our Mike Yam and Yogi Roth. They talked about all sorts of topics, of course, including ASU's 2 latest draft picks, and also why Herm believes that hope still remains a stronger force than fear. Here's that conversation.
What was that moment for you when you saw Brandon Ayuk where you said, I know he's a Sunday player?
Well, it was fun to watch him go through the process. And we actually got 2 guys drafted. Five other guys got signed. And I think a couple of them will actually make some teams, whether it's the practice squad or whatever. But you know what they're thinking. You know how they feel. Because I was that guy a long time ago. You know, and I tell them this. I said, look, what you guys have gone through here, you will have a little bit of an advantage when you walk into a training camp or to a pro facility because of how we do things around here. You won't be surprised by anything. You'll actually say, oh, that's what we do. We've done this before. So I reached out to all of them and congratulated them, to now start on a new career. It's called professional football. And I've always made them understand this, college football, they graduate. Pro football, you have to take somebody's job. There's a difference. And they don't retire because you got drafted. Yeah. You got to take someone's job.
What were the conversations that you guys had as a staff with Eno and more importantly with Arizona?
Well, I think the important thing for Eno was that I think sometimes when you don't get drafted, maybe we anticipate getting drafted, and that happens. It happens to a lot of players. We drop sometimes. And for whatever reason, we won't even get into that. But I think at the end, fit is important for a lot of players. And the conversation I had with Eno, and I said, look, you couldn't have gone to a better team, to be quite honest. Because this is kind of the perfect spot for them because of what they do offensively and how Cliff will use the running back in the passing game. Really improved on that a lot. And I talked to him about it going in this year. I said, we got to get you more balls in the passing game. That's where you're going to make it. Hey, Lord, sure enough, he had his best career ever catching balls out of the backfield. So I just think the place that he goes to is a perfect spot for him. And then from there, guys, I've always said this, and you guys know this. There's a difference when you're drafted in the first round. Monetarily, I get that. But the pressure of being a first-round pick is much more higher, and the expectations of being a 7th-round pick or a free agent. There's no pressure on you. People don't expect anything. So you kind of walk into camp knowing I'm playing with a chip on my shoulder. There's no expectations for me. And guess what? A lot of those guys are going to make football teams.
All right, so I want you to reflect. It might have been your birthday 40 plus years ago, but when the draft happened for you, what do you remember of that weekend? Because you were undrafted.
I was not. My story is real simple. It was 12 rounds. I can remember I was maybe slated to go, 2nd, 3rd round, and had a pretty good college career. And the fact of the matter, though, is that I went to about 3 different schools. And so probably got labeled as a malcontent, not a coachable athlete. That was back in the day. You can see it now. My afro's growing again. I'm going to be about 6'4".
Oh, come on.
2 more months. And I lived in that era, where players had at that time players were speaking out. And that was not looked upon very nicely. And now it is, players can actually ask why. And I was one of those guys as a player would ask why. And that was threatening the authority of a coach. And so I ended up not getting drafted. And I can remember like it was yesterday, every time the draft comes out, I always say, I was sitting at home and first round was on, it was on TV. Might have not been on TV yet, but it was on the radio. And then after that, you had to look at the newspaper and see if you got drafted or whatever, or listen to the radio. And about the 5th round, I called the operator from my apartment and said, will you call this number, please? I want to make sure the phone was working. No cell phones back in my day, by the way. And I said, would you call this number, please? And she called the number, phone rang. I said, it's not good. It's not good. So I ended up becoming a free agent, going to Philadelphia. Dick Vermeer recruited me out of high school. I had about 3 or 4 teams that was after me. And I can remember first day of training camp. And there's like there must be 22 defensive backs. We took 135 guys to camp now, back in the day now. Real football, like double days, all that, real stuff. And so I'm looking at John Outlaw and I say, Lawman. He said, yeah, what you need, Rook? I said, how many guys make it? And he says, they only keep 8. So I looked at him and I said, who's the other 7? And he looked at me like, what'd you say, Rook? I said, who's the other 7? I said, I'm not going home, man. I got nowhere to go. And my greatest claim to fame as an athlete, I tell people this story all the time, is that I never missed a start and I never missed a practice in my days with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think that what people don't realize is this: in life, somewhere in your life, you have to have enough courage to bet on you. And that was me at a young age.
As an undrafted free agent, you had a bunch of guys kick off to different teams. How were you involved in that with them in terms of talking to teams or placing them or guiding their decision?
It helps when you know people, because they're going to call you when they get in certain situations, and they're going to call you and say, Coach, so yeah, he fits, he'd be good for you guys. So that's the fun part, when you know some GMs, you know some coaches, you know some scouts that get some guys signed. And it was we were very fortunate. 5 guys signed as free agents, so we got 7 guys that are having opportunities to try to prolong their careers as football players. And I told them all, I said, look, this is about doing the work now. And the number one thing you got to realize when you go into a camp, you have to be available. You don't get no days off. You can't miss practice. You cannot. You have to be available, because they are evaluating you every day you walk in that building. And availability is critical.
At least uncharted territories right now, preparing for a college football season. We don't know when or if that's going to take place. What's your take on the safety of your players and making sure that not only do we get the outlet of being able to watch your team on the football field, but at the same time, making sure that these guys are in the best possible position to stay healthy?
Well, that's a great question, and that's been the conversation with all the head coaches when we have our meetings on Thursday. It's the safety and the preparation part of it. The time it takes to get a guy in shape to play football. And no coach is going to put, or no university, no AD, no president of university is going to put any of these players in harm's way as far as them being in condition to play a game. Because the product's going to not look good, but also injury occurs. And these are young men. They are student athletes. We can't lose sight of that. And I said it many a time, energy and emotion make the world go round. But facts, common sense, and a calmness slows us down. And I think we all have to realize that is very important. And player safety is the forefront of all this. And as a coach, it's kind of funny. I always tell people this. I said, as a coach, you get to make a lot of decisions before the game starts, but when the game actually starts, you got no decision on how those guys play, right? You get to make all decisions, but when they go on the field, guess what? You don't know what's going to happen. Now I know this: as head coaches and ADs and presidents, we can't even make decisions. The quarterback that's quarterbacking this team right now is the health professionals. They're going to tell us when we can go back, and they're going to tell us when it's safe.
Well, can't wait to see Herm and his guys back whenever that may be. And if we're spending time with a Sun Devil, we know we better balance things out with a Wildcat. So up next, one of the most well-known Arizona alums, a man with 2 Triple Crowns under his belt, is stopping by. We'll hear from Bob Baffert next on Playlist.